Hi, everyone. Welcome to A Way of God's Remembrance. This is presented by Awake to Love. I'm Lee here with Cindy. We are the volunteer Zoom hosts and so grateful that you are here. You have arrived for a very special gathering. This is the last gathering of this month and the fourth consecutive gathering where Michael Hayes, co-founder of Awake to Love, is joined by Alicia Das, fellow co-founder of Awake to Love, also husband and wife, and Alicia, to my knowledge, the world's foremost authority on the angelic kingdom. So we look forward to more wisdom and, for the highest good, even more activation of God's remembrance. As a way of introduction, I will read Michael's words to help bring clarity to the focus and format of this gathering. This is a weekly gathering for those seeking greater awareness of their true nature. There are many paths and approaches to higher consciousness and to greater awakening to who we truly are. The essence, the truth of all these paths is more about remembering who we are and have always been, rather than becoming something different or more than we have seen ourselves to be. A way of God's remembrance goes to the heart, to the intention of all the paths. This is what we will explore together each week. Michael and Alicia will share thoughts and awarenesses that come forward as relevant and purposeful for our time together, followed by questions and answers related to what they share about. We will begin with an invocation of light to help support us all to be in collective alignment. Alicia will lead us in the light invocation. After the light invocation, we will play a recording to lead us in Anai Hu chanting.
Thank you, Lee, and thank you, Cindy and Jeffrey, and thank you so much, all of you, for being here. It's wonderful to see your beautiful faces. Thank you for allowing me to join your beautiful gathering. So let's just take a moment and really open ourselves to receive, to give, to be the light. So if you would just gently close your eyelids, place both your hands on your heart chakra. And as John Roger, our spiritual teacher, says, just tell yourself, this is love. This is love. Take a deep breath in, breathe in the love of God. And as you exhale, just let go of anything less than love. Just let it all go. With this next breath, breathe in light, the light of love, the light of the Holy Spirit. Let it all go. And with this next breath, breathe in grace. Really open to receiving, to being one with grace. Inhale love, light, grace, and as you exhale, you just let anything less go. And since you're all muted, with this next breath, breathe in love and exhale with some sound. Inhale love and just exhale with some sound and a shake. Just shake it all out. Shake your hands up above your head. Just fling it out. Just let it go with some movement. Roll your shoulders. Open yourself to fully receive as you gently place your hands in your aura, combing your aura. Yes, you can. And just flinging out anything, pulling out anything that is less than love. And just be aware of the most beautiful, beautiful light of the Holy Spirit filling you now. protecting you and surrounding you. As we open into the light, to the Christ consciousness, to the traveler consciousness. Lord, we are so open to miracles. Here in this consecrated collective, we know that we were born the beloved and there is only one. And this one is awakening itself within us. And so truly, we remember, we affirm, and we speak as the beloved, which always resounds in the one collective consciousness of loving. And so be it. Berush Bisham. Now we'll bring in the Anna Hughes.
Welcome, everyone. It's nice to have you all with us. And it's truly a joyful thing for us to share with you and to be connected at this time and to this opportunity to experience and explore the greater oneness, greater truth of our essential togetherness. I was reflecting on this day, and before I started thinking, what in the world would I talk about? And suddenly I realized that today is kind of a special day for me. 50 years ago today, on August 28th, 1974, I rolled my car at 75 miles an hour on the freeway. And as the car tumbled over and over again, I contemplated the immediacy of, oh, I'm going to die. And miraculously, I was thrown out of the car at the last minute, and the car landed upside down, crushed next to me, maybe 2.5 feet away. So if I'd stayed in the car, I would have died. Fortunately, I didn't have a seatbelt on, and I survived. And I took a breath at that moment of surviving. It was like the first breath. And with that accident, a significant change happened in my consciousness. I can't explain how or why, but from that moment and that day on, my obsession to find something, to know something, to connect to something was activated for me in a way that took over my life. I was about to go away to college 5, 6 days later, but I went to college a different person. And it's interesting because I wasn't really afraid of dying. I was something where I was, oh, I'm going to die in the car. But I was more interested than afraid, which was strange as I reflect. But it activated in me this great appreciation of living and the opportunity of it. And it activated in me a sense of myself that was something I had glimpsed, but had not been able to really stay in. I remember even when I had the accident, I was in this incredible bliss laying there on the ground, just feeling like such a complete oneness with God and life. And all of a sudden, a voice somewhere in my consciousness that had to be part of me, but it sure didn't seem like me. And it said, oh, my car. In that moment, I realized there was like two me's. There was the me that was concerned about the car and concerned about the continuation of my dreams and story about having a car to go to college so that I'd have more freedom and could do more things a 17-year-old kid wants to do. And there's this other part that was in just this total appreciation of living in life. And the way of God's remembrance for me is really coming back to that there is this higher truth, this higher purpose that's called us into this conditioned experience. And it is always present, and it's always observing all of this from a consciousness that totally appreciates all of this, even as it knows that it's apart from all of this. And for that one that we truly are, this is an adventure, this is an experiment, this is a chance to look at reality and deal in reality, to get absorbed in a different storyline than our true essence normally deals in. So I reflect now on 50 years ago today, how that was a real turning point for me. I didn't realize it at the time, although I realized something was very different. Where those things that had been coming to me that I would reflect on occasionally started to become a constant reflection for me more and more. And I think for all of us, that constant reflection seems at first to be that we as individuals are reflecting more and more that there must be something more. But at some point, we come awake to the reality is that constant reflection is our remembrance of that one that is reflecting on us, and our realization that one is always reflecting on us, is always witnessing us, is always absorbed in our story in a degree that we never can match, because it's learning from every aspect and element, where we're trying to get more of the pleasure and reduce the pain. It's embracing all of it. And this one that is that way is the one begotten, is the word made flesh, is the truth of all essence that we all are an extension of. It is the one that is calling us into remembrance. It's inviting us to move beyond looking for God and instead realize then that we are truly God looking. And as God looking, we are looking and learning. We are experiencing and we are expressing. And we are only giving forth all of what we have to give into this opportunity. And as we come into this remembrance, this that we truly are becomes more and more available into this that we have pretended to be. And more than that, it becomes more and more available for all the other consciousnesses that are in this pretense. It becomes an activator, an awakener, an accelerator of remembrance for all. And as more and more of us come into remembrance, the collective power of that remembrance becomes a force of activation. That more and more, the knowing that the kingdom of heaven is at hand and the blessings already are, will not only be available to this world and all consciousness in it, but will be experienced by every beingness. This is the heritage, the eventual destiny of all, and the eventual goal and gain for every being. God clearly hasn't been in a rush for all this, and yet we're in an interesting time here where more and more availability to this access to this truth is being extended by more and more people in more and more ways. For us, it's very important to not confuse the way of God's remembrance or the coming into remembrance with the great path of becoming, which is the normal road of progression that's been done on this planet. And that path of becoming is largely where our progression is. We learn to engage on this planet less with what we would call the lower magnetism of creation and more with the higher magnetism of creation. Another way of seeing it is we learn life after life after life to choose more wisely so that we deal less with what we would think of as bad karma because it brings pain and suffering, and to deal with good karma because it brings happiness and good feelings and self-appreciation. Now, we can look at all of that as a path of acceleration, a path of evolution, a path of spiritual awakening. But it isn't truly spiritually awakening. Spiritual awakening is the way of remembrance. Up until 2,000 years ago, this way of remembrance was reached by few. It wasn't that it was totally unavailable, it was just so difficult to get free of the karmic law and the endless repetition that was required to participate here under karmic law, that most consciousness could never get freed enough from the distractions of this to come into the remembrance of the greater truth. It happened, and we have in the history, we can see the masters here and there. But the collective many coming to that is not a story of this earth prior to last period of time. So as we are in this time, and it is a grace of God that's given that to us, let's all, as best we can, surrender to the truth of this and recognize that this higher perspective, this truer point of view, is available now to each one of us. And thank you for participating with us tonight, and I hope we're all going to learn and grow to the greatest degree we can. You have anything to offer, baby?
I just saw a chat of somebody asking to turn the volume up. I don't think there's a way we can turn the volume up. You can turn the volume up. Could you guys show us, you can raise your physical hand or your Zoom hand. Are you having a hard time hearing us? Or Michael, since I haven't really spoken, so just raise your physical hand or your Zoom hand if your camera's not
Two
on.
hands.
If you're having a hard time hearing us.
So 2 hands. So most
people can hear us. Okay,
All right.
a few people raising their Zoom hands. Okay, so we're going to move a little bit closer to the mic. So move it forward. Very good. I have no idea why I'm speaking in an unknown accent. And if you continue to have a hard time hearing us, let us know and we will figure it out. I thought that was beautiful. I assume you've talked a lot about, this is where I'm at a bit of a disadvantage because I'm only here once a month. Have you talked about the difference between law versus grace? Well, since we're doing a hand raising thing.
I think we have, but anybody never heard it?
Anybody have any questions about, would you like to hear a quick primer on the difference between law versus grace, or anybody have any questions about it? Just raise your hand. This is not your official question. This is just if you would like to know more about.
I think we're going to
just
talk
a little bit.
I'm not seeing any.
Just there's some, but not a lot. Okay. Yeah, there's a few. So this is not really about law versus grace, but one fun fact, well, actually it is about law versus grace. A fun fact is a rather obscure John Roger quote, and I don't know if I can, I'm sure I can't find it for you while I'm trying to do this at the same time, but where he talks about how very few did, as Michael was saying, did ascend through the realms, did receive what we receive through grace on their own. And one of the very few that did that was Archangel Michael, which I thought was kind of interesting. Because we think angels are just born in grace and just born evolved, just born ascended, and it's very much not true. I'm not going to go into the differences and all that, but if we look at how do we have the divine remembrance of a very high archangel, it's not terribly dissimilar to how do we ascend without the filters of identity. And so, big stretch for me, but let's do what I hope will be a brief exercise, meditation, if you will, on experiencing, on seeing, on speaking, as Michael talked about, with instead of looking for God, being God looking, of turning that perspective around rather than looking outside for God, looking outside for the traveler, for angels, for spirit. It's really turning it around and irradiating from that presence. So let's just move into a very brief meditation and then we'll move into sharing. So if you would just, if you're not already, make yourself comfortable and just let's suspend disbelief for just a moment. Let's suspend the disbelief that I can't see through God's eyes, that I'm separate from God. Of course, this is all about the remembrance that, yea, I am one with the beloved. And so just for the next few moments, it's really a suspending of disbelief. Put outside your room. I literally want you to cup your hands in front of you. If you want to open your eyes and peek at what I'm doing, you're just cupping your hands in front of you like someone's going to pour holy water into them. And into your hands, you're going to place, just for the next few moments, if you want to take it back after the meditation is done, you can, but any limiting beliefs, I can't do this, I can't see from spirit, I can't speak from spirit, I'm not clear enough, I'm not evolved enough, but I did that thing when I was 4, whatever that is. I'm not the guru, I'm not the whatever. Put that in your hands, just put it all in your hands. This is a JR technique. Anything else? Put it in your hands. Anybody else's thoughts, feelings about you and your essence of holiness. Close your hands tight around that. And on the count of 3, we're going to lift it up and give it to God. 1, 2, 3, let it go. Give it to the Christ. This is the time of miracles and mysticism, for you were born the Lord and you never died to that. You simply closed your eyes temporarily. So now drop deeply into your heart of hearts, which happens to be the heart of God. And now affirm, oh, beloved essence of existence. Oh, that I might recall, that I see the truth of love, the evidence of love, despite all misgivings and distractions of residing, so they say, within a body, a mind, emotions. Oh Lord, that I might see from spirit, open my eyes, divine, part of all that is, that this sight be holy sight, that this breath be co-mingled with the breath of all the masters that have ever walked, that are within me as I am within them. O divine ears, that I might hear the sound and the silence of the realms evermore, each moment, each day, ever increasing as I ever evolve through all the experiences of my children that are one with me. Yes, this is a stretch. Yes, I am up to speaking from spirit. Pure essence of God's holy tongue. And so again, beloveds, this then is who you were born to be, who you never have died to, who you always were meant to embody, even as you walk this consecrated earth. Eyes upcast, everywhere at once, God resoundingly calling itself home, and the name of you is that name, which is always love. Amen. Yeah. And as you're ready, Lee, if you would please take it away.
Thank you, Alicia. Bless you, Alicia. Thank you, Michael. Bless you, Michael. This is guidelines for questions. Questions are to be about a way of God's remembrance and what Michael and Alicia have shared. To ask a question, please raise your Zoom hand. You can find that by hovering near the bottom of your Zoom window. Click on the React button. A pop-up appears and choose Raise Hand. Please also turn on your video for full participation. If you are on a low bandwidth connection and are unable to, so be it. Most important, and since so many of us have had the blessing of working with Michael over so many years for help in clearing so many things, this is not that. Please do not ask questions of a personal nature and do not ask Michael for assistance in clearing. Questions are to be for your benefit, the benefit of those of us gathered, and those who will participate via the archives. We ask that you look to the integrity of your intentions before asking a question of Michael or Alicia. And thank you for your cooperation. Finally, here is the legal consent. By raising your hand and asking questions of Michael and Alicia, you are giving full consent to Awake to Love to make the audio and video of this gathering, including your sharing, available as online archives for anyone to access. Please do not raise your hand and do not share unless you are in full agreement. Thank you.
We're going to call on somebody and then we're going to mute temporarily again while we clear something in the space. Okay. You have a couple hands there. Anita, and then we'll go to Sina, and then we'll see. So we're going to mute temporarily, has nothing to do with you, Anita. We're just going to clear something in the space. Please.
Hello.
Hey,
It's been a while.
hi guys.
Hello. Nice to see you.
Oh, it's good to be here and to see both of you. Bless you guys.
Bless
Thank
you.
you for calling on me. I, um, I don't know what the question is, but in remembrance, when I was very young, I used to get very hot, and I didn't know what it was, and it scared me, and so I blocked it a lot. And about 20 something years ago, I was talking to John about it, and he mentioned the seraphim angels and the heat that they bring. I don't remember my session with John. I have a hard time before the travelers of staying present. But I do know he did mention the seraphim angels. And I was wondering if either one of you had anything that you could share with me about them and me. When I was going through menopause, I couldn't distinguish the two, but what I know is that the heat appears from my chest up through my head, and it is intense. It is. I don't know what this remembering is, but anything you can share with me, I'd appreciate.
Well, Michael just tag teamed me, so I'll start. The seraphim are beautiful, beautiful angels, very high, great archangels. So I need to figure out I think the biggest number is literally Googleplex, which is where Google came from. So there are perhaps Googleplex angels. There are about 150 great archangels that we've seen. So consider how rarefied that is. The seraphim, some of them are great archangels. There's one that evolved up from the seraphim named Archangel Michael. As a seraphim. The seraphim are fire angels. So your heat makes a lot of sense. When I am working and I'm just in a training or I'm clearing, I get hot and cold and hot and cold. I put a coat on, I take it off and I put it, etc. So the seraphim are, so most things in the angelic, when we translate them into the human, are symbolic, not literal. It's a pretty much opposite creation. one of the things that I was able to confirm with JR before he died is that the realms are merging. The angelic and the human are merging, which will help to usher in a golden age of a more evolved individual. Now that's a seed is being planted now. It may be harvested many, 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 many millennia, because you can imagine that's quite a shift. So I'm seeing so many more people cognizant of their angelic heritage. We were angels long before we were humans, right? But not just angels, archangels, because if you threw an angel into flesh, because angels don't have free will, I don't think they could navigate, they could survive. I think they would fall very rapidly. But you throw an archangel into flesh, now they learn much more about free choice very rapidly. So, and this is what the first book I'm writing is called Your Archangelic Ancestry. It's what it's about. Now, when I look at you, Anita, and many, wow, about 50 people on the call. So I'm thinking that's about a third of us, almost exactly. Hail from the seraphim. So does it make sense that that's why you're asking? The seraphim are one of the highest sects of archangels, if you will. And they're similar as far as hierarchy. Angels don't relate to hierarchy at all, by the way, because they are in divine remembrance. They do not forget they are God until, spoiler alert, they incarnate into the flesh, right? So they don't relate to hierarchy because it's all God. You can't have less God and more God. But we relate to hierarchy. So the seraphim are one of the highest, the cherubim, etc. So it looks like the opportunity for you and many others. And there's 50 who have that heritage, but the other about 100 and change of you can also benefit because seraphim have just come through and blew a wind through the gathering. So if you'd like to release some sort of stubborn belief, I'm not worthy, I can't do it, my mom, my dad, my whatever, right? My attachment, this would be a good time to let that wind blow through and shake it loose. So whatever that is for you, especially you, Anita, since you were in the hot seat, pun intended. In fact, what is that for you? If I were to say, what is something? But while you and I are kind of entertaining people while the seraphim are doing their business. So whatever it is that you've been clinging to that you know doesn't serve you, it's time to let it go and fiercely pray and let it be lifted. So what would that be for you?
I can't. It's I'm tired of pain. I'm tired of the pain. And I'm an empath. And it's not mine. And I know it. Michael told me years ago, you asked for it. I could have hit him in his head. But and I use all kinds of the things I know, DSS, all the things I know. And it comes back. It comes back. And oh. So that when I feel the heat, I ask for a release. If you're clearing karma, please do it. Help me out here. Make it easier. Give me some grace. So I see them as cherubs, though, like little angels, not with full bodies. I don't know, like only from here up.
Well, that's accurate. Angels don't have form. There's this prevailing myth that angels are, hot men in dresses. And that is not my experience. They don't have form. They are essence. Okay. So I'm not surprised you really see their form.
Yeah. But I don't know what I'm resisting there. And if you have anything to say on that,
Well, it's not what I have to say. Hopefully, it's what I'm hearing a seraphim angel say to you. And by the way, they have just turned up the heat for all of us. So again, keep sacrificing, keep giving up that thing. Like when Anita's talking about that thing that has been her, if we could call it core karma, whatever yours is, keep lifting it up to the light. Let them burn that out, drive a wedge through it, lift it up. And that's grace. So don't just listen to Anita sharing, because this is everyone's sharing. So Anita, it looks like specifically you had, can I be specific? Are we allowed to do that?
What you're allowed to do.
Okay. They're supposed to ask general questions. I don't know if I'm going to get kicked out for answering specifically.
You might.
I might get kicked out. Good. I can go watch TV or something, which I don't really do anyway. I am really hot. Anybody else really hot? I'm turning the air conditioning on as we speak. You see my head, my face is flushed.
me too, me too. And
So
I'm sorry if I'm against the rules. I'm
you're
sorry.
not against the rules. I'm being
Oh.
against the rules because I'm answering specifically.
Just do what you
So it looks like, Anita, you were in charge of many, many legions. Well, a legion of many, many, many angels right before you left the angelic to go into other creations, human and other places. And you were in charge of many legion of angels. You were a very high seraphim. And your mission was to take all these angels into Venus. And so, by the way, this clearing is not just for Anita. So whatever you relate to, claim it as yours, right? Because we're all one here. And see, the confusion when we call ourselves, and this is for everyone, when we call ourselves empaths, angels are in a collective, right? They're one. We are born in individuation. We're like, I'm me, and if I want to lop my baby sister on the head, I can do it, right? And we evolve to we're all one, kumbaya, we're all the beloved. Angels are born in kumbaya, we're all the beloved. They evolve to the individuation, to free choice, right? So we evolve oppositely. Make sense? So those who are of angelic ilk or Davic ilk, by the way, nature spirits. If you're like, I'm one with nature, that's where I find my gem, my peace. You may have come more through the arc Davic. So very similar to the arc angelic. So you were in this collective, you had evolved to individuation, but the heart and soul of the angel is always in the collective. And your job was to go in and take the fire to Venus, to burn out what stood in the way of Venus being Christed. And when you did that, so when you're offered something very high, you'll be offered something less to see if you'll go for it. And when you did that, there was a very still small voice saying, enough. And you could see, because you had profound sight, that if you just did it a bit more, that the whole planet would be Christed and would be done. But there was a very still small voice saying, hold. You didn't hold. So, I mean, we can all raise 2 hands and a foot in the air on that one. Did not listen to that still small voice, right? Because it's very darn still and small. So when that happened, you mostly, first of all, you served very, 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 very well. Venus was Christed, as you know, and 144,000 came here to help Earth be Christed. But you did create some karma there because of that collective. If I feel pain, all feel pain. The karma created was if all feel pain, I feel pain. See that switch?
Mhm.
So you've been working that out for quite a while. And it's time now to affirm that the beloved, that God, that spirit, does not experience pain except through us. But you are God, you are spirit, you are the transmorgifier of pain. You are not pain.
Okay.
So if you would do that for a moment, and you have a legion of angels helping you. Everybody, please do forgiveness in this moment of whatever that is for you, even if it seems small. Really give it up, let it be burnt away. That all that would remain would be the ashes of the Holy Spirit, the renewal, the remembrance.
I like that. I like that sentence. Yeah.
So keep affirming that, love. You're so close to this just being done. Reach out to Archangel Michael, and to, if you start to experience any of that, and to the seraphim, and just see it burnt, all the holy flame of love. And check out a poem by Saint John of the Cross, Fray Juan de la Cruz, very much in the line of what we're doing here. Called I believe it's called The Holy Flame of Love. He talks about this. You have anything?
I'm just enjoying the show.
No comment from Michael. Okay.
Yeah, this will be not just for you, this will be for everybody.
Thank you, Alicia.
One of the greatest gifts that we can be given by God and Spirit is for us to be given the experience of suffering when we put something between ourselves and God. Now, one of the reasons we put something between ourselves and God is that it rewards us in some way, but it doesn't reward us in the essence of ourselves. It rewards us in the one we pretend to be. It rewards us in our personal existence, our individuation. And so, in a strange way, sometimes we see people with these situations where they seem to be in pain a lot. We can feel bad about it. I do. And yet, from a higher aspect, you can understand there are those times where that pain is actually a gift. Spirit says, you put something between me and you. And as long as that's between me and you, you're going to suffer. And that's going to help you realize that you put something between me and you. Because the big problem for most of the planet is they don't realize they've put something between themselves and God. It's a remarkable thing that the fulfillment of the whole game for us is not something we experience within us. It's the experience of getting beyond us. It's the experience of freeing ourselves from this illusion that this is us. We get back to the truth that we are consciousness. We're unbounded spatially, and we're unbounded by time. So many times when you're more evolved, or we're more evolved, and you're in that category, the soul will very purposefully ask for things to be there to work on as like a thorn in the side, a rock in the shoe. It's almost like, well, why do I have to keep walking with this rock in my shoe? What's if everything is for me, everything's a gift, everything's a blessing? What's this rock in my shoe reminding me of? Oh, please tell me, Lord. The Lord says, this world is not your home. Oh, So you're preventing me from getting too comfortable in this experience. Right. So there's a lot of things that we rail against in our human experience, and yet the suffering that we're having is reflecting to us that we're obstructing the greater awakening, we're obstructing the greater knowing of God. And sometimes something like what's described here for you by Alicia is just what we could call a karma that carried over. And your soul said, well, maybe I could work it in the other levels, might take me 200-300 more lives. I said, no, I don't want anything between me and God. Give it to me right there in the physical. So I wake up and I go to bed with it. And as soon as I start to surrender more into the dream of this place, I feel this ache and this pain. But anytime I pop free of it and I come back in the remembrance of, I'm one with you, Lord, suddenly the pain goes away. Wow, what a great gift. It's built into the whole scenario. Every knock's a boost. Bless you.
Love you.
Love you too. Thank you.
Of course.
Don't you know top down?
Sina,
We already asked. Okay. Perfect.
she was next.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi.
Hi.
Okay. So, I've always felt this connection with just everybody. I'm not, but more like, okay, if somebody is doing something, then there's a part of me that feels like I'm doing it too, but generally in a good way. And what I mean, like if when I watch the Olympics and I see all these people doing all these amazing things, I'm like, well, that's me too, because it's it's like all of us doing it, how we're all connected to God. So I look at it and I wanted to just get you both of your takes on this idea of how we're all, the way I see it, like God individuated, but then, all connected through the source. And then, all of these accomplishments that people do, I feel that a part of me is doing those things too. But then, so the flip side of that also is, let's say, all of the negative expressions that people do. And, I don't get real caught up about feeling guilty about the negative expressions, although I did as a child. I used to feel responsible for, hunger and famine and massacres. It was very odd as a child to feel that it's somehow my fault that these things are happening in the world. Um, but I've really just looked at my role is when I see these things, well, how can I apply loving to this to bring more loving to this world? And so I just wanted to hear you guys speak about that as a general question.
I just want to clarify the question. So what I heard you say is you have this beautiful oneness, which, by the way, that is beautiful. That's certainly a part of remembrance. And you'd like to know how to, and you're not, in your past, it sometimes would not benefit you, but now it does. And you'd like to know how to utilize that to serve in a greater way. Am I hearing you? Am I hearing the question correctly?
Yes, and I just also like to get your perspective on this because this is kind of how, I'm framing things in my mind, but, I just inside I feel like maybe there's another way to look at this or frame this or, and specifically, I mean, not to be too specific, but I'm working in the area of domestic violence now with my work. And it's just a beginning. But at the same time, I'm just very cognizant of my role in this and, how I can be in my loving and in my light. And I'm getting goosebumps saying that, but really just holding a focus to have, to allow the light to work through me in this area and just be really present, if that makes sense.
I have something quickly, unless you have
Go
something.
ahead.
Well, for me, to me, it's a bit of two different things. One, I'm going to call it your divine remembrance of we're all one. By the way, is really gorgeous and something that I think that we all aspire to. That really being happy when someone succeeds and not, but and we also don't want to go into over responsibility for others. So for me, I started working with people. I started utilizing my friends as guinea pigs for quite a while before I would hang out. Then I had like way too many people to work with. Michael's like, you need to charge, you need to charge, you need to charge, and and I didn't hang out a shingle until I knew I could be neutral. And I think it can be harder for women to be in that place of neutrality when someone is suffering, especially when it's a situation like domestic violence. And of course, what can very much help us is something Ron and Mary so eloquently shared, is everyone has their own inner resources, right? To heal themselves, to uplift themselves. Now, it's hard when you're dealing in a situation like a domestic violence. I find this hard, now having worked with people for decades now. Most of the time I can be in that neutrality, but it can be hard sitting across from someone where something like that has occurred, to be in that place of altitude. Something that really helps me is to be in that divine unknowing. So to remember, I don't know enough to judge. I tell myself I do, but it's not true. If I could get above and look at all the intricacies of all the karma, then I would know enough to judge, right? But of course, if I could get above and look at all the intricacies of the karma, I wouldn't judge, because it would all make perfect sense. Oh my goodness, this gorgeous soul, let's say it's a woman sitting in front of you, this gorgeous soul yearned for this experience, to clear this karma, to move up 40 levels, and she'll be free. Oh my goodness, this is going towards last lifetime kind of stuff. Her soul is applauding this and celebrating it, and the angels are dancing in the heavens. Now, that's an evolved perspective, but it's not that far-fetched, right? So when you're sitting with that person, if you can, keeping your loving intact, take a step back and reside in that divine unknowing. Now, it's going to be harder for you and people like you who have a very keen, strong, quick mind. And of course, you know what, we're friends, so I know how your mind works. And it's like lightning, which is wonderful. It's why you're, top of your class as an attorney. It's harder for smarty pants like you, and I'm sure there's lots of other smarty pants on the call, to be in that place of divine unknowing. I used to say I would sit and stare stupidly at people and not talk until the knowing would come through, because nobody cares what my mind, they're not sitting there in front of me to hear what my mind has to say. Oh, occasionally I might have something, but mostly, it's that divine unknowing. And it still applies when you're, when you're in a situation where your mind is why they're coming to you, but really, sweetie, they're coming to you for your heart and your light, and you know that, and you have that rare ability to have all the levels, called the mind and the litigious acumen, legal acumen as well. But if you notice yourself like going forward, wanting to help, step back so that spirit could come forward. right? And reveal to that person their own strength and help to hold the container. Because if they can come up with their own answer and you can hold that space for them too, that they will have for the rest of their life. You sharing your wisdom is helpful, incredibly, but them getting to their own wisdom because you hold that vision of them having all the resources within them to navigate this with altitude, boy, girl, that is soul transcendence. That is transformation. And that's where your gorgeous, we're all one vision can be utilized by spirit in spades.
Yeah, one of the biggest lessons that I've been learning is to keep my mouth shut. It's really valuable.
I have a very spiritual technique for that. You ready for this? So I'm going to share this with everybody. This is very vulnerable. So you guys, hold the light for me. Here's my very spiritual technique, especially when the boys, it works wonder on boys of all ages. Okay? So it's called duct tape. I literally imagine duct tape over my mouth, right? Because they need to come forward and talk. And it's not easy when you're a smarty pants like you and you have so much wisdom to give. So I think that's incredibly wise. If you would also help you be more neutral. Guys?
That was great. I don't really see much to offer. When you're really empathetic, one thing that might help you is when you're with people and that empathy is connecting you, keep reminding yourself to connect to people from up here, the third eye and the crown, not from the belly button and the heart center. The heart center, as beautiful as it is, and the belly button center, these are the big emotional centers. But they're also going to tie us into the karma. See, to get that beyond time and space perspective, we've got to get up here. John Roger used to talk about, there was this workshop many, many years ago called Turning Points to Emotional Freedom. It hasn't been done very often, I don't think. And I can remember him taking sharing within that. And he told everybody about that there were the 4 sacred cows that everybody deals with here. And I see this if I can get these right. So it'd be like, no, I don't know. It basically was like security, money, recognition, and romance. Okay. So if you think of those as sacred cows, you think of the chakras, you think of the root chakra, that's security. That's safety, stability, security, and certainty. And I want to be sure, I want to be safe. Second chakra is the belly button, is sensation, excitement, stimulation, adventure. Yeah, I want that. Third chakra is all about how me is going to be perceived by the we of the world. So it's about recognition, how the world is going to see me, how I'm going to fit in the world, my place in the world. The fourth chakra is when we're finally getting into the we element, out of our me into the we, but it's all about finding that me possessing the we, my we. That's romance. I'm getting beyond myself with this person who is now mine. So I'm getting beyond my me by making another person part of my me, but it's still part of the me. So it's still part of our lesser nature. So since we all have these when we take on the body, we're going to have impulse to operate in our engagement with other people through those chakras. Let's say I engage with other people through those chakras. I'm going to have a connect with those people, but I'm going to be connecting with them karmically. But while I'm doing that, I also have an opportunity to connect with them spiritually, connect with them up here. Well, if I connect with them up here, I'm connecting with them, the part that's beyond time and space. So the third eye is where we move beyond the we into the unity. That's what you're talking about. I'm feeling one with all this world, these people. That's a great one. But sometimes we'll slip into this, but we'll slip back into the other one, especially when it's a loaded issue like domestic violence. Oh, that's so wrong. See, now we're back in it. We've dropped down lower chakras. Now we're getting caught in the karma. Just means we're actually part of us is now in the story. We want to be in it, but not of it. We want to have the objective or that freedom, which is up here. We have that unity. We get up here, we go be past even unity into eternity and infinity. We go beyond time and space. Or we start to. That's our doorway beyond into the infinite. So every time you're doing this, the challenge for you will be to hold to that unity thing, which really works for you. But because it's now a loaded subject, don't get seduced into right in my gut. God, I could relate to that. God, I remember that guy got rough with me. Oh, wow. See, you're drawn into the karma. And when you're drawn into it like that, some people will appreciate that because they feel like you're really with them in it. But the greatest service you're going to do is to be aware of it, but not of it. So you can have your gut will know it's there, but you hold to your anchor point up here, which gives you the objectivity. You're in it, but not of it. So they get your empathy, they get you care, they get you understand, they get it. You're a safe place for them to be real and divulge. And so you meet them in all that realness, but you also connect up here. Now, there's a lot of people who do the kind of work you do, and what they do is they offset the connection through the chakras through flipping themselves or pulling themselves out of the emotions into the mind. So they mentally abstract. And so they're, well, I'm okay, I'm not feeling that. Yeah, but you're not feeling that is a huge disadvantage to you being able to help those people because you want to feel what they're going through. You want to know it because that's how you best serve them. That's how you'll best work this process. So you want to be able to feel that, but have a lifeline back up here, which keeps you from getting caught in it. Because you're going to go into it, but not of it, because your truth is here.
And now the truth can be revealed that you thought you were an attorney, but really you're a spiritual counselor.
Well, I have to say that I'm not a lawyer. I'm just a law student.
At the top
Lee,
of the class.
Lee will understand that. Almost getting there, really close.
Well, so this will serve you well in what you
Yes.
do. It serves us well in whatever we do. And the stuff I do very early on when I started to deal with all this weird stuff, I was in one of the first Super True trainings, I think.
You still deal with weird stuff.
I do. I'm married. And I can't remember I started sharing, and John Roger just kind of out of the blue said, you have spiritual support to do the work you're doing, but you must learn to be totally emotionally detached. Now, when he first told me that, I thought, oh, so I have to cut off the emotions. But as I came to realize, no, emotionally detached just means I'm detached from this because I'm attached here, and I'm attached up here, and I'm attached in these things, but I'm still engaged in all this because it comes with the humanness, and the people I'm trying to support are engaged in this and that, and their issues aren't up here normally, they're down here. So I've got to have a connection into that, but I don't get hooked. And that was the whole game. And whenever I got hooked, I was in trouble. And if you start to work into the really dark and dangerous things and the negativities of this place, if you get caught, it's very bad. What you don't get caught is you never leave your home. Your home is here. I shall dwell in the house of the Lord all my days. It's in the Bible. The house of the Lord is within us. You will do it as a mother, do it as a lawyer, do it as a friend, do it as a minister. It allows the Spirit to do the work through you.
And even if you just do it 5% more, that's a lot. Like, you don't feel like, okay, I have to go live from my crown chakra now all the time. And not at all. Just a little bit better each time, and go, oh, oops, I slipped. Let me back up, and ask the spirit, ask the traveler, ask the preceptor, ask, etc., to help you move up. And a trick is also to ask your basic self to keep the light between you and the person, right? Because you're going to forget, but your basic is invested in that. Oh, I want to stay clear. I want to stay happy. I want to stay good, right? So just ask her to hold, and, say you can even put colors on it, right? And so your basic self, I used to do that in PAT trainings, peace awareness trainings. Where, because Jared's like, oh, hold the light, always put the light between you and the other person. I'm like, well, I'm not going to be saying anything if all I'm doing is light. And so I would ask my basic to hold that light. So you can ask your basic to keep the light around you while you're.
Yeah, I've been really connecting with my basic self throughout this new work that I'm doing, to just really be on board with it and feel, safe, right? That's that safety. And so far it's been good, but it hasn't necessarily ramped up where it's going to be yet. So it's more like, okay, like stretching or preparing the way, and it just, all of a sudden I joined the call. I was like, oh, I need to ask this question right now. you know? So it just, it's like, oh, this is important for whatever reason.
And clearly, and lastly, I'll just say your oneness, to me, that really comes from one with an angelic / Davidic heritage, because they are in a collective. And that can kind of give you a head start in that we're all one, just connecting into that collective that you know so well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Love you guys. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Next.
Those are the three who have
Yeah,
their
there's 4 hands.
4 hands. Yes.
You're picking.
I'm picking.
Who is next?
Is there anybody, raise your physical hand if you have not shared with Michael or I before, or both of us, actually, I guess should be the category. If you have not shared with both of us, raise your physical hand. Peter, we can't see you on your video, but, okay, so you have not shared. Okay, so if you have not shared with both of us, raise your physical hand, please. Okay, so that looks like the second person, I can't see your name, Rona, has not shared with both of us. We will try to get to all of you, and we'll see. We have to be more pithy. Hello.
Hi. I haven't shared with you two in this situation, so I wasn't sure whether to raise my hand or not, but here I am. It's really, really sweet to be with you guys. I'm just seeing myself. I want to see you both, but and I want to thank you for.
You'll see us in a second after you finish your
Good.
question.
I want to thank you for this time that you are with us. It's really wonderful. So it's kind of a 2-part question. Michael, you had shared about remembrance being kind of a rather new awareness on the planet. And I want to make sure that I understand remembrance, I think, is knowing ourselves as divine and one with God. So I wondered if that was correct and if there was anything else.
The opportunity of it is more available now in a different way than it has been before.
Okay.
So progression on the planet was largely moving from a level of engagement with the energies of this planet, let's say the magnetic forces that operate here, and gradually evolving from being less involved with, let's call them the lower magnetic, and more involved with the higher magnetic. And that was most progression. And occasionally somebody would break through the magnetic and start to deal in the non-magnetic. It was very difficult and very hard. And so it would happen, but it was rare. Generally, when you saw that really on the planet, it was a being that came out of the non-magnetic with a special dispensation to sort of catalyze the planet. And so they already were conscious of the non-magnetic when they came in here. And so they were able to reconnect to that awareness they'd had prior to entering physicality, and then be a vehicle of catalytic change in terms of the fundamental precepts or approaches that the world was using, or people in the world were using. These would be Christ, obviously Christ is the most demonstrative one, but Buddha, Zoroaster, whatever, they had access to the non-magnetic as well. With Christ, with the, that whole thing, it changed the dynamic of, basically it was decided in the high spirit or God, basically, that the plan that was laid out here of an eye for an eye karmic law was not fulfilling God's intention in doing all this. Souls were just getting bogged down in this endless repetition. I mean, it was very hard for anybody to really get free. So if you think of this as an experiment of God, says, okay, we'll try this. And the archangel that was in charge of that, we now call Lucifer. That wasn't his angelic name. Anyway, it was decided that, okay, this experiment isn't really achieving the outcome God was most concerned about, was they wanted the souls to learn. But the eye for an eye was keeping souls, repeating things over and over and over again just to try and get them balanced perfectly. And so this other option came forward which said that, well, we're going to make it easier for people to get free, where when they're demonstrating that they're learning what they came to learn, there will be grace extended, forgiveness, and the karma won't have to be done eye for an eye. That's not for all karmas, but a lot of karmas could then be done under grace. And suddenly that opened the door to greater availability to the experience of the non-magnetic nature of God. And so it's not that nobody ever did it. It was just extremely hard to do. Now it's kind of easy to do relatively. It's so much easier, so much more available. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that does. It's it just amazes me at what you guys are aware of and share with us and know. How can, I just wondered, as a minister, contribute to that?
Come awake, come into the remembrance yourself. There's a sharing I've shared before from before. I was just sharing John Roger had many, many years ago, and somebody said, hey, John Roger, the Maharishi says if we can get 1% of the people on the planet meditating on the upliftment of the planet, we can change the consciousness of the whole planet. And my recollection of that answer he gave was something like, yeah, that's true. If that was true, we could change the consciousness of the planet. But if we could get 100 people established in the soul plane, meditating those energies of soul back in this world, we could change the planet, consciousness of the planet far, far more than that 1% ever would. So you think about, why would that be? Because if they're established up there, that means they're established in the non-magnetic reality, and they start meditating the non-magnetic truth back into this magnetic condition. That can cause a much more dramatic shift of consciousness.
Momentum.
The momentum of much more than tens of millions of people just thinking positive thoughts or meditating, or see tens of millions of people sitting going, I'm meditating on God, I'm praying to God, I'm trying to get in touch with God. That's somebody meditating. But somebody establishing it, realizing I'm part of God, realizing the Father and I are one, and they're bringing that energy back into this world. Wow. It's just a whole different game, whole different potential of shifting of the consciousness of this planet. So if you really want to contribute to that, come awake, come into the remembrance of who you truly are. Do the work, do the process, let go and let God. Surrender to the truth that you are always with God and always part of God and always an extension of God and a servant of God's purpose by taking on physicality. What did God want out of your participation? God wanted to learn. So you come here to learn. What do you learn more than anything else? The difference between the magnetic and the non-magnetic, the difference between being run by cause and effect, the difference of being able to choose from the higher nature of yourself or choose from the sense-driven apparatus of the body, the mind, the emotions, the ego. You learn to choose and to live from the direction of the one you really are, rather than the one you fall into the illusion of being, we call the self.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bless you.
Bless you too.
Let's just go to the next one up there.
Who did you want?
Who's next?
Cindy?
Hello.
Hello.
Good to see you too.
You too.
I've been really noticing of late, like especially the last 6 months, how much more it seems to me that light is pouring onto in my consciousness and on the planet. It just seems to come in wave after wave after wave and a lot of changing to higher frequency. And I just wanted to know if you two had any comment about that. Is that your experience as well?
It is. I don't know that I would quite say it exactly that way, but close enough. In my experience, to get more specific, the silent ones are in closer, which they don't come in closer very often, only when there's a major shift occurring on the planet. And that's my experience. And this is a pivotal time. There's many confluences, of astrologically, karmically, spiritually occurring right now. And of course, there's the shift from the Piscean to the Aquarian age, from law to grace is quite major, every 2,000 years. Of course, the preceptor, and the end of the Mayan calendar, and we could go on and on. It's a pivotal time. So when that's occurring, it's like, God has taken and stirred the pot of humanity. And what that causes is that those things that need to be skimmed off the surface to come to the surface. So we're seeing a lot of that as well.
And deeper too, for nights. And in my experience, going deeper and deeper and stirring the pot.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So it's like, well, what the heck is going on? Not only in the collective, but within us, where we're being really taken to our core. And so but that's actually ultimately quite a good thing, because then it's coming up to sacrifice so that we can recall that we are not that, we're not that, we're not that. We did this training many years ago. And, there's of course the who am I, who are you question. And we actually switched it and who aren't you? Who are you not? I'm not this, I'm not this. There's a word for that. Was it Nadi, N-A-D-I, I believe it's called. It's some Indian term, which I should know because I'm half Indian, but I can't recall it at this moment. Do you remember?
Nadi? I don't remember that. And nadis are.
No, I know, but
that is an Indian term.
It is an Indian. There's some word for it, but in any case, it's really just the corollary of who are you, when who are you not, right? And it's funny because the ego it's easy to go, well, I'm not the limiting things. I'm not the lousy thing. I'm not the this, I'm not the body. I'm not the, but at some point it can be hardest to sacrifice even the shining parts of us, which we must sacrifice because that's still in us. That's still a separation from God. I'm not any of that. I simply am. Right. So yes, I think that there is more light on the planet, really, in essence, because we're ever evolving. And people like you're always one of those people who is so inspiring with your work ethic in spiritual study. Extraordinary. And to me, you're someone who can point the way and say, yes, it takes effort, but it's also effortless.
Yes. Oh, yes and no. It's both. One of the things that I'm really practicing because of this class is that surrendering to the depth of the spirit inside of me and God. And I was noticing tonight as both of you were talking, learning how to really surrender. I mean, just go into the deeper depth of spirit in me and let it pour in me. But it's pouring in me, so there's still some distance between me being all of that essence is coming in versus it's pouring in and I just get into it deeper. So there's something I need to move through, I think, to have more of that sense of the oneness and beingness of the remembrance by being the remembrance in my awareness and in my state of being.
I'll just want to say briefly, and then Michael can take it away. What I hear for you is to drop your reference points.
That's
right?
a good.
Go up and I go up and it's like I go up and then I cut that reference point. I go up and I cut that reference point. I go up and I cut that reference point. There's a meditation on our YouTube channel that I did. You might even have been in the class because you've been in a lot of our classes, but it's like you go up and you go up and you go up and you go up and you just keep dropping the reference point so that, and it's like you can literally see yourself just cutting the cord. Even if it's a fine stream of light, you just cut the cord.
Good, that's a great suggestion. Do you have anything to share, Michael?
Well, Christ is meditating the world awake. So that's a big part of what's going on. And if it isn't true that the kingdom of heaven is at hand, as Christ said, and the blessings already are, as John Rogers said, then all the light that's possible to have is already here. The real question is, who's aware of it?
Excuse me, the real question is
Who's aware of it?
who's aware of it?
Yeah. Are you? Now, the highest awareness one can have of it is not the awareness of it, it's the awareness as it.
Yeah.
So that's the frontier for you is to start having more the awareness as it, not of it. As it, not of it.
Yeah, thank you for that energy. That's what I was talking about earlier. I need more of that as it.
Well, it's calling itself back to itself. And that part of itself that it's calling back to itself is the part that's been doing the game of Cindy in time and space.
Right.
So it's extricating all of itself back to itself. And eventually all parts of itself will be brought back into the truth of itself, except the truth is all those parts that it's activating or pulling back to itself have always been part of itself. They've just been in the forgetfulness because of the time-space experience, because of the individuation that they've been portraying, which has been according to God's plan and serving God's purpose. But nonetheless, that the undoing of that is a thing. So when you go to the process of it, there's a natural inclination for us to think of, now I'm going to do my meditation, my spiritual exercise. If you understand it more like, this is really the of myself, I can do nothing. So my meditation spiritual exercises is my opening myself to be willingness, allow myself to be freed of this illusion by that is truth. And so you surrender to the truth and let it undo you, free you from the confinement of the game of becoming.
Okay, that is happening.
Of course it's happening, and yet your pushback inside you keeps reverting you back to,
That's right.
I need to do this, I'm not doing that, or I'm not experiencing this, or not experiencing that. So you've had so many lifetimes of doing this that without realizing it, you become, let's say, a little bit addicted to the sound and light show of new experience.
Isn't it a little bit what?
Addicted to what I call the sound and light show of a new experience of oh, this, oh, that, oh, wow, that sound, oh, this light, oh, this. And the problem with that is those are all experiences that you are having. Yet the thing I'm talking to you about is the end of you. No more you. There is just the one. As Jesus said, the Father and I are one. Came to that state of, oh, there's only the Father. Therefore, only the Father's will is done. And these things I do, you too shall do. Oh, so we are all the Father. The Father's one with all of us. The Father does his own work through all of us. Oh, so it's just coming into remembrance of this truth. But the game of this world keeps tossing us back into the game of becoming, of I become more. I become more like God. I become wiser, clearer, smarter, prettier, richer. I become. And yet the real undoing, the real liberation is in a sense the demise of the I.
Thanks.
Yeah. John Rogers said it kind of really neat in a set tape recently. He said, somebody said, are you kind of in bliss all the time? And he said, well, no, I prefer the word ecstasy. See, bliss is something you have within yourself, but ecstasy, ecstasis, which means beyond yourself. So ecstasy is getting beyond the self. Bless you.
Thanks a lot, both of you. I love you. And I'm so grateful for these classes.
Yeah, thank you, sweetie.
Thank you.
You're just going in order, or you? Okay, Peter, please.
Unmute. Okay, great. Excuse me. Great to see you both. Okay. This is such a rich evening. I have a question about creation, and maybe both of you have something to say about this. As I was referencing back to Genesis once, God says, let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness. And so when he says, let us, well, who is the us? That's what I want to know.
I can take a stab at
Yeah, why
that.
don't you go with that one?
Such an easy question.
I know. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, just Genesis and yes, who created things. It's funny, I was in a meeting today, a very dry business meeting, a business consultant, and he's talking about, the typical texts you get from clients. Just in the middle of the meeting, one of my clients texted me, who wrote the Bible? I'm like, this is very typical. And then the next text was, and who built the pyramids? So ask me your question again so that I can let Spirit answer it.
Okay. In Genesis 1:26, for all you Bible aficionados, let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness. Who is us? Does he have subcontractors?
I was just getting into my divine unknowing. Well, I'm going to answer you first from just what I consciously know, and then I'll let spirit speak even more or more. And I am half Indian and half English. So we're raised by a Christian mother and a Hindu father. I'm always loving to blend the different heritages, cultures, beliefs. So I'm writing a book on angels, and I was never allowed to pick up. I promise this has a point to your question, right? I was never allowed to pick up books on angels. I had dropped them like they were burning me. I had to go direct. So until I started writing this book for Penguin Random House, and I was putting the Elohim, and I always heard the Elohim are God beings, right? So the Elohim are, let's not get into are they angels or not angels? They're very high beings. Well, in Judaism, Elohim is plural, and it's a monotheistic religion, right? So the consensus among Jewish theologians is that it's angels or very high angels who assist God, right? So to me, when God is saying in our own image, and that is I haven't actually heard that quote in that way. I'd always heard it as in, in God's own image. But it's, of course, so God said, let there be light. And I don't know if you were here for my very high tech, do not try this at home, children, visual aid here. Okay. So, yeah, I can show it to you. So the silent one, so it's God said, let there be light, right? So God created light. So one might say there's spirit, which is essence, and then God is spirit's discourse, is the consciousness of spirit. Okay. So when God created and then created us, here we get into the us, to know its creation. And those were the silent ones who are the living bridge between creation, manifest reality, here's, mountains and, people and, here's manifest creation. And this is essence, right? Undifferentiated consciousness. The silent ones are that line where they are both in manifest and unmanifest creation. And now I'm going to let spirit more answer. So to me, that's part of the us. And then the silent ones just below. So it's like God said, let there be light. And the silent ones then would chant light, 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 and hold creation in abeyance so that they were in touch with the unmanifest, which is the truth, and the manifest creation, which is a vessel for learning of the truth. So in our own image, to me, is not so much that God has, is peopled with eyes and a mouth, but that we have free will as God. We are co-creators as God, not just co-creators with God, but as we're speaking here, divine remembrance, co-creators as God. So I'm trying to answer a very big question in a short time. But in the angelic, when angels were created, they did not have free choice. They did not have free will. They had to evolve to that when they became an archangel. Man, we are born in free choice, free will, right? To me, that is more in God's own image because we have autonomy. We are sovereign. We can choose. We are co-creators, initially with God and then as God. And that image of having the autonomy, of having the free choice, is more tantamount to God's own image than it being obviously literal and having anything to do with form. It's about free will and us being God's children, then coming back to God of our own free will. Think how, now to personalize God or to anthropomorphize God, how brave God is to send us out. You know, God exhaled and there's creation, right? Not knowing if we would return of our own free will to go, I could choose law, but I choose grace. I choose love. I choose higher. I choose God. So we are God choosing back into itself of our own free accord. So there's many we's in that where, sorry, my computer just freaked out. So there's many we's, but of course that is the ripple out from that first creative impulse. We're all, in essence, God choosing back into itself, and tantamount to this theme of God remembering itself as itself from within itself. So you asking that question is God asking that question.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Sure.
I don't have anything to add.
Great. Well,
And
thanks so
you
much.
have a heritage, as I see, Peter, for your consideration with the Elohim.
Oh, interesting. I like
Yes. So they're very, very crazy high beings. Not that they're crazy, could be, but they're just extremely high. So we have, back to my extremely sophisticated visual aid, you have, you know, spirit and you have God, right? My mother was an artist. Clearly it skipped a generation. You have God, you have spirit, you have God, you have silent ones, right? And then right below that, you have extrusions from the silent ones. The Elohim are one of those very first extrusions. They're directly below the silent ones. So
Got it.
having heritage with the Elohim is pretty cool. There, I see that there's others on the call. I'm not going to give a number because people are like, oh, am I of the Elohim? So ultimately, you're all one, so it doesn't matter. But for you, I would, and for some others, call upon the Elohim, especially if you are concerned about what you perceive, and that's underscore the word perceive, as miscreation in the world.
Hmm. That's an
Right.
excellent point. I like that. Yeah, that's always been a part of my consciousness.
Makes sense.
Yeah, totally does. That's very, very helpful. Thank you for that.
My pleasure.
All
God
right.
bless.
That's what
Maria Solbes.
Can't hear you.
Hi,
She's
how
fine.
are you? Michael and Alicia, thank you so much. I love you guys. Thank you so much for all the wisdom you share. Um, I wanted to ask about the principle of light.
You'd be a little more specific?
Um, I had an experience and I actually was curious about what does the principle of light means.
Well, the acronym was John Rodriguez was living in God's holy thoughts. Living, L, in, I, God's, G, holy, H, thoughts, T, light. Living in God's holy thoughts. And I was never sure what to do with that myself. Principle of light. I don't know if there's a principle, if light is a principle, light is a truth. I think light is a truth. And I'll just tell you what I hear. And I don't know if it would be true or not, because I'm just hearing it for the first time. But as I'm looking at it from the spirit, you could understand light as a tangibilization of love.
Nice.
So it's, I'd say it's a forming or a solidifying or a condensing of love into something tangible as a way of relating the intent of love. So if God is love, so God has the intent to extend itself. So we say, well, then God does loving. So that's an action of the extending of love. If he makes it personal to a person, maybe it's lovingly to that person. Those are tangible. But in terms of, if you go to Genesis in the Bible, since we were just talking about Genesis, the last sharing, and the beginning of the Bible, it talks about there was darkness on the face of the deep. And then God spoke and said, let there be light. And from that speaking, let there be light, all things came into being. So it says, oh, so light brought forward all things, all forms, all formulations, all differentiation. Light was the seed of all differentiation. So therefore, all things, all of the existence we could relate to as a thing is some kind of formulation of light. And yet, where did it all start from? It started from love, which was God. So light then is the tangibilization of God's intent for love to become loving. That's a very metaphysical, esoteric answer, but it's the one I got.
Perfect.
Thank
Thank you so much.
Bless you.
I have a
Thank
little.
you, guys. Thank you.
Yeah.
I am going to let someone else answer this. Not that there is someone else.
There are no others.
There are no others. Yes. So who was it? Who was Maharishi was asked?
No, Ramana Maharshi.
Ramana
Ramana.
Maharshi was asked, how do you get along with others? And he said, there are no others. So this someone else is, what I hear them saying is, light is created, you might say, was created to illumine creation for God's children, to reveal, to make known the unknowable. Light was formed out of essence and was in effect a commentary on essence that we in form could cognize, could relate to, could perceive essence. When you go into a dark room and you turn on the light, what is there is revealed. Light reveals the spirit, reveals essence to be what it is, which is always an ever evolving learning about loving. Light does not manifest, rather it illumines, it reveals. Light does not make up anything, it reveals what is. So too, you are not making up anything or discovering God. You are simply recalling, remembering, recognizing yourself into your original essence, which is God. So in essence, the light can illumine, can amplify that remembrance, for it, as Michael said, tangibilizes spirit or God or love. It allows God to be loved in return by God's children. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we're getting to the end. You want to close with a blessing of some kind?
Sure. Shall we do a tag team blessing?
Well, why don't you do one and I'll do one, or maybe yours will be so good I won't have anything left to say.
No pressure there. All right, angels. So first, just take a stretch and just release anything that even could dare to hang on that is less than divine remembrance. So just now, open your heart, reach out, and ever receive more light and more love and surrender. And just exhale and allow your arms to float down. And just in this pristine energy field, divine Holy One, we come ever more into the remembrance that we are love. We ask that anything that could impede that within us, that might be stubborn enough to hang around from goodness knows when or where, and we don't need to, Lord, we just give it to you now. For it is only a distraction from the truth that all is indeed fulfilled, fulfilling, and full of grace. So again, we just lift that up. We ask the seraphim to blow a flame through that, a holy flame, that we might be purified. The Elohim to lift us above any misperception of miscreation. The silent ones to reach us into the living bridge that they are, into the essence of love itself, immediately and imminently fulfilling, that we might know ourselves, remember ourselves, speak ourselves as one with the beloved, that we might in each moment ever more increasingly reside in the highest and the deepest and the fullest and the widest, everywhere and nowhere at once. The essence of the sound, the light, the love of God. Each one here be blessed, and that ripple out from us through the planet, contributing to the Christine of our planet. As above, so below. As within, so without. Until we meet again. May each one remain one, and so be it.
Thank you all for coming and experiencing with us and sharing a way of God's remembrance. We encourage you to continue this process in your own lives, to invite other people into their own remembrance. Invite them to attend this if you like. And always be conscious that the call of Spirit is here, calling us all back to this truth. Bless you all. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. We love you.
Bless you.
Bless you.
Next week, we'll be back at 6:30 on the next Wednesday.
You and
Bye-bye.
Bless you. Bless you.
Thank you, Mikey. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you,
Bye.
Michael.
Bless
Thank
you.
you.
Love you.
Bye.
Bless you.
Love everyone.
Bless you. Bye.